Hi guys, just took delivery of an exciting package. I think if it's as good as I think it's going to be, you will be as excited as me. So let's just go in here and see. Here it is. Let me flip you this package. Okay. If you enjoyed the Regency Gent and you liked the story of Mr Williamson, then this could be for you. For those of you who haven't seen the Regency Gent, this was a 7-part epic restoration of a painting that had been overpainted at the turn of the century by a local amateur artist, Mr Williamson, who painted over the whole picture, and I had to remove all that overpaint. It was a great restoration and a great series. The same client whose painting was the Regency Gent was in touch with the dealer and told them about the story of the Regency Gent, and they said, we've got a batch of paintings that's just come in from the same area that the Regency Gent was from, the same estate. There was the usual number of paintings that required attention, but this one was quite interesting. The story goes that this painting was freshened up by a family friend at the time. He allegedly described himself as a gifted local amateur artist. But unfortunately, over the years, the inevitable has happened and the overpaint has turned dry, pink and chalky. So this is the young master. As you can see, it's a portrait of a little blue-eyed boy dressed in the usual smock dress that boys were dressed in at that time until they were 5 or 6. It all looks to have been fairly well painted sometime in the late 1820s to 1830s. There are some painted flowers apparently picked and laid out before him, but there is significant issues with this portrait, which I will go into. And there it is, the overpaint. But those beautiful blue eyes shine through. The face is so well painted. The background looks well done, but there are elements of this painting that aren't sitting so well. The edges are very badly frayed and coming away from the stretcher. It looks like there's been some damp at some point. All the tacks have rusted in their holdings. There's numerous rips and tears, flaking paint. I'm not quite sure what's happening with that hand there, whether he's holding something. Here are some of the stalks of flowers that have laid down. Here's a nasty gouge that's been patched and restored. And then on the back we have one label as a clue. I'm not sure if that says Jarrett Junior, I'm not sure, something to be looked into. And we've got a fairly recent patch that's been applied there. Stretcher keys look good. The stretcher is actually quite good quality. We've got a horrific patch there, I'm not sure what's happening, and another one here that will need to be dealt with. And then you can see that whole area there, that whole corner's corroded. So the first thing I wanted to do was get it under UV and see exactly what was happening with that face. Now the darker tones there that the light picks up is overpaint. So anything that shines darker like that is overpaint. That's overpaint. And by overpaint I mean something that's been added fairly recently. That could be in the last 50 to 60, 70, maybe even 100 years, but it's on top of the varnish layer, and that's why it fluoresces differently. Some really old overpaint can not show up under UV light, and sometimes pigments can be mixed with certain resins so they don't show, but this is quite blatantly obvious. It's visible to the naked eye, and it's even more so visible under UV. Someone hasn't even really attempted to blend any of that pigment in at all. You can see here on the hand, and that's a big cloud of overpaint, but there's a tear there, looks like a 4-way tear. Overpaint at the top as well, some little dabs here and there. But the original varnish is kind of fluorescing green, so that could be a Damar varnish that's on there. And again, lots of clouds of overpaint, again quite liberally applied. More dabs and dots here as well. Some of these darker ones might be very recent from the way they're showing up, and then you can see some paler ones in the background as well, so there's lots going on here. I'm not sure what's happening with those fingers either. But it's the face that's such a shame to see how badly affected that's been. So this came into the studio last year, actually. So you may see elements of Mr Croxton lying around. I think the Regency Gent was finished. Who else did I have in the studio? I think Antoine was around as well. So you may well see bits of those elements of the painting. But now it is 2024, it is June, and I have finally got some time to allocate to this little chappy here. So, as mentioned, there's a great story attached to it. My client who bought this couldn't resist it, and I'll tell you why as we progress. So he's in a bit of a poor state, really. There's quite a bit of work that needs to be done to him. Yeah, he's very badly overpainted, as we've already established. So I'm going to do my usual checks on there. I'm going to do my usual nosying around to see what I can find. But this is what we're on with at the moment. So I'm really excited to get on to this portrait. I think it might reveal a few little secrets. But yeah, it's just one of those where I've been dying to get onto it. So anyway, I'll stop waffling on now, and I will turn over here now to see what we can do with him. Just while he's on there, though, you can see how many tacks there are on that edge there, holding it in place. Must be 100 tacks all the way around. It's been sat in some damp condition there, that's just rotted away, and then as it's dried out, deteriorated. That's a horrific tear. But in the raking light, you can actually see those patches are coming through. They're coming through to the front of the canvas. Yeah, lots to do here. So this week you might notice a new addition to the studio. This lovely cabinet was donated, somewhere for me to keep all my pigments and some of my chemicals and go-to supplies. To get this in place, there was lots of reshuffling and moving things around, and I'm still not quite straight, but I am quite pleased with it. So you will be seeing a lot more of this in the studio shots. So the first thing I'm going to do is do my test cleans on the painting. I've got a couple of different solutions here. One is very strong and is good for dirt and grime, and the second one is more of a solvent-based cleaner, cleaning solution, which will look at attacking that varnish. So I'm just going to try in the tacking edge here on the edge of the painting and see if there is a dirt layer that we'll remove. So slight dirt colouring there to the swab, and I'll try my solvent solution. And you can see there, that's making a lot more difference and is a lot darker. So probably a little bit of dirt in there, and then it's starting to remove that discoloured varnish. So I take that same solution now, and I will try it on some of the stronger pigments. So the white pigments are always the stronger pigments of the painting. So I like to test that area first. So you can see there it's making a little bit of headway. It's quite stubborn. So I always start with a fairly weak solution, which takes a little bit more mechanical action, if you like. But you can see there it started to cut through there and remove that. And then again, just going a little bit deeper with the solvent solution again, just to see if there is another layer in there. And you can see that is cleaning up quite nicely there. And the circular ring is moving the dirt to the edges as well. So on my well tackle this in the 2 stages and clean the dirt layer first, strengthen that solution, and then go with the solvent clean. So again, I'm just going to test some other areas of the painting just to see what kind of reaction I get from there. So that was the one to remove the dirt. Didn't seem to have a lot of effect there. And again, quite stubborn, so I may need to change the strength of the solution to attack that varnish a little bit more. But you can see it is coming off, it is yellowed, it is discoloured, and it will make quite the difference. But looking at that sock, there seems to be some like yellow highlights in there as well, so that could be overpaint, or it could just be the colour of it, or it could just be the discoloured varnish. But you can see there it's a lot brighter. And then I'm moving over to the red gown here. The reds can be a little bit of a softer pigment colour as well, so this is the same strength solution that I've tackled over the white, and I'm just checking to see if this lifts any pigment as well, and this will give me an indication of how much stronger I can make that solution for the full clean. So it looks like it's turning white, but that's just a reflection of the light. Again, it's still just yellowed, kind of an amber colour, so that solution is just removing varnish and not doing anything to that paint layer, which is good. So yeah, just to confirm, it's consistent with the varnish colouring off the white pigments. And then here's the face. You can see, with it being quite close up now, this is just daylight, and you can see how brazen those over painted areas are. I feel like, do you know what, maybe they did try to blend that in, but over time it's darkened and does not match at all. So I'm just using a solvent solution here now to see if that overpaint will remove, and you can see that it is tackling that. So that's the overpaint that's coming, and it's leaving whatever's left underneath, whether that's original paint surface. But you can see how much paint has been removed from the face. There's little pockets of pigment that have stayed there, but that grey tone is almost like an underpaint or an underlayer that got left during the clean. And that cheek on the right hand side, again, very just brazen overpaint. Very brash brush strokes. I can't see that ever blending, to be honest with you. But again, I'm just using the same mixture and seeing if I can just tackle that overpaint and remove, which it is doing. You can see that there, it's coming off. Unfortunately, what's underneath doesn't look much better. So I'll just put this under magnification now, and you can be able to see the paint surface. Here we go, deep dive. So you can see the different layers here now. You've got the grey layer, which is an underpaint ground layer. Those little pink sections are what would have been the original paint, and then we can see those brash brush strokes. And then on the bottom right corner, that's pure ground level. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 layers we've gone through there, or someone's gone through rather, to clean this painting. So unfortunately, as I thought, it looks like this painting has been cleaned, or I hate this term, but skinned in the past. So that's where an overzealous restorer or somebody's had a go at cleaning the painting. Not only have they removed the varnish layer, so we saw before that further down on the painting where the feet are, it's yellowed. It's a yellowed varnish that's still on there. And then when I did my swab test on his face, there was no yellow varnish came off. And then what did come off was the overpaint. So unfortunately, I think that whole face area has been skinned. So that's had paint layer after paint layer taken off. And then we're down to hopefully some kind of base layer, or if not, we're down to ground. There does seem to be some tones there. And then we've got that horrible overpaint over the top on his cheeks, which we'll remove. But from what I could just show you there on that, underneath that magnification, that whole paint surface has been abraded away. So, but his eyes look really good and his lips look really good. So I'm hoping that there are elements underneath that overpaint that are salvageable. I think what I'm going to do next is assess whether we go for a strip line or a full reline on this canvas. So now that I know my clean solution and I'll be able to just adjust the strength of that solvent clean, I'm going to start to have a look at the actual canvas and decide what we're going to do. So from the face of it, it looks pretty good apart from those rips. There's like 3 major rips on there. The tacking edge does look to have deteriorated quite a lot. But as ever, the back of the painting usually reveals more secrets than the front. So we're going to start here. So you can see here from the back, we've got those patches at the bottom that are quite thickly applied, a different canvas. This is a very recent patch. It's a piece of linen and that's a sticky foam pad. So someone's just put that on there recently just to try and hide something. You can see we've got that label which we'll research. It's covered in brown framers tape. That's on the edges of the whole canvas. But again, you can see there's been 2 different lots on there at some point in its life. And then where it's been damp, it is completely deteriorated. And it's so fragile. It's very thin. You can see there that it tears very easily as well. And then where the tacks have rusted, the tacking edge just falls away from those tacks, so they're doing nothing at all. So at the very least it's going to need strip lining. But you can see here how that's just rotted away, that fabric there. The whole thing is just so dry and brittle, so I think the best thing will be to take the whole stretcher off the painting and see what we've got. But it does look like we've got kind of different levels of lamination here, so I'll just show you if I can how fragile it is. So that's the brown tape. So it comes off there quite easily, but this is just falling apart. There's no strength in there, there's no structure at all. It's so very fragile. So I imagine this has been damp and then dried out and been damp again, but this is really, really weak. And so yeah, that's a major issue, especially if that's across the whole of the painting. Now these patches, you can see straight away that that's a thicker canvas weave, and that looks stubborn. If you remember the label on Mr Williamson's Regency Gent, it could well be the same glue that's been used just to stick that on there. So yeah, that's kind of a brutal. But flipping it back over now, I can see that this has been relined in the past. You can see the original painting there, and then behind it is the relining fabric. So it's the liner that's deteriorated on the edges. So that being the case, my decision becomes much easier to make now. Right, that's decision made for me. It's been lined before, the lining's deteriorating. You can see how frail and fragile that lining is. There's some glued patches on the back of the lining. So for me, that's decision made. I'm going to face off the painting with some Japanese tissue paper, and then I will remove him from the stretcher and remove that old lining. The surface is pretty good, but I know you guys love this Japanese paper, but I want to apply that just to be cautious, super cautious. Right, I'm going to do that, and yes, we'll carry on. So this is a Japanese mulberry tissue. It's about 10% kozo and the rest sulfite pulp. It's very strong. It comes in 2 different weights. I think this is the heavier weight paper, so there's plenty of strength there. So I'm just going to cut this down to suit the picture size, and then I'll be using a dilute animal glue to attach this to the face of the painting. As mentioned, the paint surface is pretty stable, so I'm doing this more of a precaution and just protect the paint surface as I work on the reverse as well. I'm going to give myself a little bit of overhang here so that I can protect the edges of the actual original painting. It's also quite a nice process to do when the bench is clean and the studio clear. To do something that's fairly unmessy is quite nice. And there's that lovely cabinet there. You're going to be seeing a lot of that. I'm so proud of it. So yeah, to apply the paper, I'm just going to mix up a batch of animal glue. So I'm just going to add some hot water to this. There's very different methods you can use to prepare this. This is probably one of the quickest. It's just boiling water and the glue granules and let that soak. So this might take about 10 minutes for it all to swell and to dissolve into that mix. And then before I use it, I'm just going to test that it's not too hot and it has cooled sufficiently to apply. And then I'll just begin to saturate the paper through to the painting and try and get a nice even coat of this glue. So you can see the image coming through there. There's lots of different methods for applying this, but you can see the strength in this paper, so I'm able to kind of adjust it and minimize those creases as much as possible. You will get little air pockets in there, but these can be flattened out with a brush or roller later on. I really like his face. I think his face has got real character to it. It's really well painted. It's just those other elements, the hands and elements of the gown, that kind of stand out for me. So I've got a pretty good coverage there. I'm quite happy with that. Might just have a look at a few of those little air bubbles. A couple of little bits and bobs that might need looking at. And I'm going to tack that onto the edges as well, just to give a little bit of strength over the edge. So the way this lining has been done in the past is the original painting was cut from the stretcher, just removing the front face of the painting, and this would have left the old tacking edge on the original stretcher. And then this picture plane is placed on the new fabric, and then that is re-stretched once attached to the stretcher again. So this paper over the edges will just protect the painting, because you don't want to catch that and flick that or get that folded over as you're working on it. So I'm just going to use the roller now, make sure all my air bubbles are out, and just going to fettle this a little bit just to make sure I'm happy with the attachment of the paper. There might be the odd little air bubble in there, but nothing drastic. While that dries, I'll just show you some other portraits. So the tradition of painting the firstborn or heir goes back a long way, and there's a number of similarities in these portraits. This is Joshua Reynolds of a young master. We've got another one, portrait of the artist's son, and they've all got this red velvet jacket or suit on. There's flowers in the painting similar to ours, and I think it became a bit of a tradition. People wanted the portraits the same style, the same way that these fantastic ones did look. Now this is a very famous one, The Red Boy or Master Lambton by Sir Thomas Lawrence. Similar kind of era to our painting. You can see the red velvet jacket and the lace captured that person in a very kind of, I don't know, cherubic fashion, should I say. This painting was, I think it was £46,000 when it was first commissioned, but unfortunately The young master in this picture died when he was 13, and it got passed down through various generations until the National Portrait Gallery in London bought it for around £9 million. The pose is a little bit similar to ours in terms of the way he's seated with his foot tucked in. We've got a very kind of rustic landscape in the background. Now, it's kind of unfair to compare the two like for like, but I'm just trying to show similarities here. We've got the red gown, we've got the foot tucked under, we've got the landscape in the back. So just trying to give you a little bit of history of this style of portrait. Obviously, whoever painted the head in ours was accomplished. I just think something happens lower down in the body that's not quite right. Anyway, our facing paper has dried now, and we're going to be able to remove this painting from the stretcher. So I can turn this over now and know that that surface is going to be nice and safe. And then my first port of action is to take off that tacking edge and get the old stretcher off, and you'll see that this happens quite easily. So the whole edge is so fragile, and it's brittle. I think that's the word I would use. It's extremely brittle, and those tacks, they're not holding anything. I don't know how it's really still attached. It must just be sheer gravity, but you can just see here, using my fingers, I'm able to just pull off the tacking edge away from those tacks. I think it's more the framing tape that's holding this painting together, so there's probably gummed framing tape that they've put on the edges as well. But you can just see how easily it comes off that stretcher. And it's almost like that fabric has burnt, the rust from the tacks has burnt through the fabric and just completely corroded. Seems to be a funny stripe on that lining fabric too. It's so very thin. And here we have the top edge and that label. Sometimes at this stage you feel like you've undone everything and you try and remove the stretcher and there might just be a little area that's still caught. So I've still got something caught here on the edge. There you go. Something's, I think it must be that tacky edge there, or that pad. But yeah, there's a little bit of something just catching on the corner. You can see it's nearly ready to come out. There we go. See all the debris falling off. And that's the stretcher away. I'll have a quick look at that later, see if there's any clues on there, any inscriptions. But now I can actually see the state of that lining. And it looks like, that looks like a, I don't know, is that a bed sheet? Why has that been used? What's that blue stripe? A little bit of a mark there. I don't know if that's a stamp of something, but it's so thin, it's not linen, unless it's bed linen, so I'm not sure on that. And then these patches have been added on top of the lining, so I'm just curious of how strong the glue is on those. There's that more recent one. But yeah, if you guys know what them three stripes might mean, please let me know in the comments. And I'm just going to start removing that lining now. So you can see how easily that is coming off. Not as easy as that though. I don't know why you would use double-sided foam pad there, but I think it's the tiniest little tear as well. At least they match the fabric to the front. So this fabric piece, it will have been attached probably using a rabbit skin glue or similar. It's quite fine, and again, over the 100 or so years or longer that it's been on there, it's deteriorated. So this lining will be quite straightforward to remove. It will be quite easy. I'm just going to be very mindful of those edges where the original painting is. I don't want to crack that or damage any part of that as I'm removing it. So I'm just going to keep moving from the outside edge in and try and keep that painting as flat as possible. What I'm hoping to find is some kind of inscription or some kind of markings on the back of this canvas that might give us some clues. That's the dream. Whether there will be or not, I don't know. So I'm just trying to keep even pressure on there now. It's like right hand, or left hand rather, is holding it flat sometimes, and just pulling that evenly across. And when I get to those patches, I think the glue has come through the lining fabric as well, so I'll just be mindful when I get round to that stage. You can see here that the dye from that fabric has actually come through the glue onto the actual back of the painting. It does remind me of a bed sheet for some reason, I'm not entirely sure why. So you can actually see the edges of the original painting now, and the paper is holding it in place nice and strong. So this has just appeared, the stamp, the maker's stamp, something canvas, bubble canvas, something. That's nice. I don't know why it's printed landscape rather than portrait, but yeah, it'd be nice to see what that says and if that gives us any clues. I was kind of hoping for more of a hand painted inscription, but that's better than nothing. So I'm getting there now. I'm just going to tear this around those patches, and then I can address them more directly. And with this being so fragile, I can just tear along those and get rid of the bulk of that. And again here, just near where those patches are. It's nice to get that horrible old lining off, and then we've just got that bottom edge to look at. And here's that inscription. It looks like cowl, something newly invented, India bubble canvas. I will put that into Photoshop and have a closer look, or if anybody else can. It definitely says India bubble canvas on the bottom, whatever that means. But yeah, if someone wants to have a play around with that and let me know what they think it says, that would be great. Please leave that in the comments. And I've just got this last bit to tackle now on this bottom edge. Again, I'm just going to rip that around those patches. There's a nice shot of my elbow there for you. I'd just like to say thank you to all my patrons for supporting the channel. It means so much to have your support every month. If you're new to the channel and you've not headed over there, you get access to all episodes ad-free, and you get them early release before they go onto YouTube. There's also lots of behind the scenes, some tutorials, and I'm going to start launching a vlog. So there'll be a vlog of what's been happening in the studio, covering lots of different projects as well. So thank you to all my patrons, it means a lot, and please head over there if you'd like to check out more exclusive content. Right guys, I will let you get back to the restoration. Cheers. The lining around the patches removes quite easily, but that thicker layer has been glued on with something a lot stronger. Maybe it's a stronger hide glue. It does move, but that actually hurts my thumb trying to pull that off, so I'm going to have to soak that before I attempt anything again. It's just ridiculously stubborn. Yeah, I think that needs soaking. I will keep trying though, of course. But yeah, I think it's just so stiff. And then any gains that I am making, it's just ripping. That's just pretty solid now. This reminds me again of that label I was doing on the Regency Gent. That took forever to remove, and I should have probably just started soaking that a lot earlier. Yeah, the glue's even seeped into that lining layer now, so it's not worth messing with any further. And I need to get rid of all this debris. This little toy appeared when I was rearranging the studio to install the cabinet that I was gifted. It's an attachment that fits on a regular vacuum cleaner, and it's designed for sucking up all the dust and dirt from behind a stretcher. So there's two different attachments, and this is the larger of the two, which I'm just blocking up now with large pieces of framing tape and paper. But I'm just going to use this to gently get rid of some of the dust and dirt on there. But yeah, that was quite good to find that. I think I remember buying it years ago and never doing anything with it. But I have got my eye on a variable speed restoration or conservation vacuum, but they're about £500. So finding this little tool was great, and it does the job. So yeah, I'm just going to clean this up, and then I'm going to soak what's left of these patches before I try and take any more off. And to do this, I'm just going to use a clean cloth and a little bit of warm water, nothing else. And I'm just going to gently build up some layers of water here, soaking the back of the painting and that patch, and hopefully the water will swell the glue and soften it, and I'll be able to just easily take off the remnants of that patch. It might need a little bit of persuasion, so I'm just going to test this first and see. I don't want to apply too much water because I don't want to saturate the whole painting and then maybe loosen the facing paper. I just want to apply enough to release that patch. So in my first instance, I'll just do it like this by hand and by eye. I could dampen the cloth and pack it out and put some weights on top as well, but I just want to see how much moisture is needed. A little bit easier maybe. That was the thickest piece left, but still quite stubborn. Not much moving there. It's going to need a little bit more. So while that's soaking, you can see here, this is me scraping off some of the lining glue. Something I'm going to have to do across the whole of the canvas. So I don't think this patch was put on using an animal glue. I think something else has been used that, you know, either takes a lot longer to soak, but the rabbit skin glue just comes off so easily. That's swollen, but then the patch remains. It might just be a little bit more stubborn. It might require a little bit more mechanical. We will see. It's not as easy as the peel on Enoch Seaman last week or a few weeks ago. That varnish did come off quite nicely and quite easily. This is a lot stiffer, a lot more stubborn. I can't quite decide if the moisture is making any difference at all. It might just be a matter of trying to get underneath it. Here we go, this is it. Just get that underneath and then flicker that out. Try and do it in one movement if I can. There we go. It's kind of brittle. It's strong and brittle at the same time, if that makes sense. Maybe Mr Williamson did get his magic glue pot out and stick these patches on. So I'm going to have to keep working on those. This is how I clean the back of the canvas. I'm just going to apply some water into these into little squares, let that saturate the glue, and then once that's saturated fully, it'll be a matter of just scraping that glue off the surface and trying to squeeze it out of the canvas weave as I go. So the glue will swell, and I can just use my same spatula and you'll be able to see that just remove off the top there. Kind of a grubby, dirty job, but somebody's got to do it, as they say. If it starts to stiffen up again, you can always add a little bit more water to it just to kind of get it nice and loose again. You can always do it a couple of times as well over that same area. So again, I'll just resaturate that and then I can have another go over the top. So you can see there that residue is kind of coming out of the weave of the canvas now. So just a little bit of pressure on there, forcing that glue out. And then when I come to either, if I do reline it or if I do strip line it, I know that the back of the canvas is nice and clean. Get as much of that as I can off. If you try and do too big an area at once, the glue will just begin to harden again, so it's best just to do small sections as you go, add a little bit of water, softening an area up, going back to another area, and just kind of be methodical like that across the whole of the canvas. Okay guys, I think we'll leave that there for this week. I'm going to continue scraping all that glue residue off the back of the canvas, and then next time you see the painting we will be looking at maybe strip lining it. I think we might strip line this, or if not, we'll go for a reline. I'm not sure yet. We'll see how the week goes. Thanks everybody who watched the video. Thanks if you stuck around this far. If you want to head over to my Patreon, I've got some exclusive videos going up there at the moment, and there's always lots to see over there. Other than that, Manchester, cloudy June, but there you go. That's what we're used to here. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all soon. Cheers guys, take it easy, bye.